Hi everyone, so today we have a bit of a fun, list, the top 5 countdown of the top 5 most endangered Senate Democrats in 2020. So this is my current 2020 Senate prediction. As of right now, Democrats pick up Republican held seats in Arizona, Colorado, and North Carolina. They remain close in Georgia and Maine. Democrats pick up Republican held seats in Alabama and remain close in Iowa. Democrats pick up GOP seats in Arizona, Colorado, and North Carolina, and they remain close in Iowa and Georgia. Republicans take Democratic seats in Alabama, and they possibly keep Iowa. Iowa I'm leaving as a pure toss-up because it's just too hard to, make a clear prediction as to who would win that state. So, going through, we're going to actually start at number 5/6. At number 6, we have Virginia with Mark Warner. This isn't part of the top 5 countdown list, but I thought it would be a good idea to mention Virginia, and I think that he would be the most endangered out of Virginia, New Mexico, Oregon, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, New Jersey, Delaware, and whatnot. He would be the most endangered out of the safe seats, and I'm actually considering putting him in the likely column, considering all the controversy that's surrounding the Democratic Party of Virginia right now. But I do think that will die down. And I believe that Mark Warner will win that seat in a safe fashion. So now on to the actual top 5. So starting off with the 5th most vulnerable Democratic incumbent is perhaps what some people would call a surprise pick. I'm calling it for Dick Durbin in Illinois. His favorable ratings are really, really bad, and perhaps that's because he's the top two of the Senate Democrats. However, for some reason, people just hate him, and his approval rating has consistently remained in the dump. And for that reason, that's why I'm not putting it in the safe column. I also think there might be some kind of grassroots movement to perhaps primary Mr. Dick Durbin. I think that could do quite well. At the end of the day, it really depends on if he or she can get their name out there, etc. But I see Dick Durbin being the 5th most vulnerable Democratic incumbent, but I still think he would quite easily win, definitely within that upper range of the likely, range, just because Illinois is still such a Democratic state and we're so polarized right now. I could see it being difficult for that to happen. So, the 4th most vulnerable Democratic incumbent senator I see being Tina Smith of Minnesota. Let me just cross off real quick. Okay, so Tina Smith of Minnesota, she easily won a statewide contest. I think that's actually partly to do with having Amy Klobuchar on the top of the ticket, who actually might announce running very, very soon. But yes, Tina Smith of Minnesota, I see being the 4th most vulnerable Democratic incumbent. Approval rating, we don't really have much information given she's only been in Congress for about a year now. Only been in the Senate for about a year now. But she did very well in her recent re-election in 2018. I see no difference as to why that would be different in 2020, other than the fact that Amy Klobuchar probably won't be on the ticket. Will not be on the statewide Minnesota ticket for probably not a governor or a senate or whatever. In fact, I don't think she can, because the next Senate seat after this would not be up until 2024, and the next governor's seat would not be up until 2022, because the current Democratic governor just got elected in 2018, who, by the way, actually lost that Democrats actually lost that district to a Republican, the Minnesota 1st Congressional District. That's just a quick side note. But anyway, Minnesota's Tina Smith, I see being the fourth most vulnerable Democratic incumbent senator. So now we're really getting into the vulnerable senators with the top three. Michigan, with Gary Peters, I see being the third most vulnerable Democratic senator in 2020. So for Michigan, it's an interesting state. It's generally Democratic. We saw Democrats do very well in the recent 2018 midterms. They picked up a House seat. They won a Senate seat. They won a governor's seat. I mean, just looking at the Rust Belt in general, all four actually of these states, Democrats made gains in, with the exception of Wisconsin. All four of these states re-elected Democratic senators. All four of these states re-elected or re-elected Democratic governors. All three of these states elected new Democratic governors, two of which used to be in Republican hands. But anyway, that's just a massive side note there. Michigan with Gary Peters, very interesting race. Quite a centrist Democrat in Peters. I think that, again, he could definitely get a primary challenge like Dick Durbin. And that may or may not be successful, but I see the primary challenger for both Peters in Michigan and Durbin in Illinois being relatively successful. Even if they don't win, I see them coming close due to the grassroots movement in both of those states. Remember, Sanders won Michigan. There's a progressive base inside Michigan. He almost upset Clinton in Illinois, which was one of her home states. There are progressive bases in both of those states, and that's also something to note. Now, even though in the recent 2018 midterm results, the Democrats were not as happy, the progressives weren't as happy with Michigan because their candidate, Abdul El Sayed, lost to establishment Democrat favorite Gretchen Whitmer. However, I still see Gary Peters, or whoever the Democrat is, winning there in Michigan. The next one, as you can probably expect, is in the state of New Hampshire. Jeanne Shaheen, I see being the most vulnerable Democratic incumbent bar one. And that's pretty interesting. Jeanne Shaheen won in the GOP wave of 2014, but so did Democrats in all of these other states. Dick Durbin, he won in 2014, red wave year. The Democrats, that Gary Peters actually won in Michigan for his first time, and in Minnesota, even though I don't think they had a Senate election, or they might have, I'm not particularly sure about that. They may or may not have, I'm not sure, but either way, in red wave years, these states have elected statewide Democrats. With Jeanne Shaheen, that's no different. She won in a 2014 wave, the GOP wave of 2014, where Republicans took over the U.S. Senate, giving them all three branches of government, not all three branches of government, I guess the House and the Senate, except the presidency, and so that's pretty interesting. New Hampshire, Jeanne Shaheen, I would say moderate, but not kind of so moderate. I would say Jeanne Shaheen probably in that kind of Hillary Clinton kind of arena, in a sense. Maybe slightly to the right of Clinton on some economic issues, but don't quote me on that. But definitely to the far right of Bernie Sanders, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, many of these freshman Democrats, etc. So Jeanne Shaheen is the second most vulnerable Democrat. Again, kind of a interesting scenario, but New Hampshire is still a swing state, a swingish, maybe slightly tilt blue state. Even though Republicans won a governor's seat, I still see Jeanne Shaheen hanging on in New Hampshire, and as expected, obviously, the most vulnerable Democratic senator by far, not even close, is Doug Jones in Alabama. Two things. One, I wouldn't be surprised if Doug Jones, for some reason, decides to switch parties to the Republicans or become an independent. Two, in preparation for his 2020 re-election. Two, actually three things. Two, I would not be surprised if he doesn't run at all. And three, even if he does run, I would be very surprised if he wins. Now, people keep bringing up the argument that he has good favorable ratings, but I kind of reject that point because he only has good favorable ratings because the people of Alabama remember him as the guy who beat the Republican candidate accused of sexual misconduct, etc. And that really resonated with many Alabama voters. Alabama is such a Republican state. This is at the core. Sorry, I'll get back to the approval point right now. So, approval ratings. Approval ratings change. That's the first thing. And the second thing is that people remember him as that guy, and that seems like a favorable thing. I mean, you were kind of the underdog. People like underdogs. And you beat the guy who everyone thought was kind of, not a great human being. And, I mean, that's favorable. But we've seen Doug Jones's favorable ratings somewhat decline. I mean, when he was first elected, he had massive favorable ratings over his unfavorable ratings. But in the latest morning consult, his only approval rating is 7 points higher than his disapproval rating. That's phenomenal for a Democrat in Alabama. One, if that trend continues, he's going to be underwater by mid to late 2019. And if you're underwater as a Democrat in Alabama, that's an extremely tough environment to be in, and that would be a very difficult re-election bid, and one that you're almost certainly to lose. And Alabama, this is at the core of my argument. With all the partisan stuff right now, Alabama is just too Republican. It's too Republican. Same thing. Oh, yeah. Republican. They can win in California. They can win in Maryland. They can win in Massachusetts. They can win in Rhode Island. They can win in Illinois. They can win in Oregon. They can win in... It's just not really plausible. It's like going around saying, yeah, a Democrat, they can win in Alabama. They can win in Mississippi. They can win in South Dakota. They can win in Wyoming, of all places. They can win in the Deep South. They can win in West Virginia, of all places. But anyway, Alabama, the most vulnerable Democratic senator by far, Doug Jones of Alabama. And that's pretty much it, guys. Thank you guys for watching this video. Comment down your suggestions below, and I'll see you all in the next video. Peace.